Well, welcome everyone. We are glad you are here today. As everyone's trickling in, I'll say hello. My name is Crystal McCauley. I'm with the 2020 Mom team. I'm very excited to have you all joining us for this fantastic storytelling breakout session today. I will let your speakers introduce themselves in just a moment, but want to remind you a bit of housekeeping. We welcome you to use the chat function in Zoom here to ask questions or offer comments during the presentation. Our speakers will be taking live questions as they are able to. You can also find copies of the slides that are going to be referenced today in the Whova app underneath where this breakout session is listed. And as a reminder, this session is being recorded to be shared in the future. And with that, I will turn it over to Kelly O'Connor and Beth Murphy. Thank you both for your time today.
Crystal, happy to be here. Hi, everybody. My name is Kelly O'Connor, and I'm the Executive Director of Maternal Mental Health Now. Maternal Mental Health Now is a nonprofit organization based in Los Angeles County, and our mission is to remove barriers to the prevention, identification, and treatment of perinatal mood and anxiety disorders. And we, since this is a storytelling workshop, I thought I would share a brief story about how we were founded. We were founded in 2007 by a woman named Kimberly Wong following her own experience with severe postpartum depression. When she was home from the hospital, she reached out to her OB for support. She said, something's not right, something's terribly wrong, I need help. And he dismissed her concerns. He said, you just need some rest, you're a type A personality, relax, you'll be fine. And 2 psychiatric hospitalizations later, many months of therapy, many support groups, etc., she was fine, but it was a very arduous journey to recovery. And she thought to herself upon recovery, if I had so much trouble finding the support I needed, and I am educated, I'm well-resourced, I have good health insurance, I have a supportive partner, I have a car to drive to therapy appointments, what does someone without any one of those resources do in my position? So she started what was then called the LA County Perinatal Mental Health Task Force by cold calling a bunch of people that she knew that she thought might be interested in this mission. And convened meetings volunteer meetings around a table. She made homemade empanadas to attract people to come to the meeting. And Maternal Mental Health Now was born. What we do primarily is training and technical assistance for healthcare providers, social service providers, and community providers, basically anyone that interacts with a pregnant and postpartum person in LA, on how to identify and respond to perinatal depression and anxiety. We do some policy and advocacy work, which is about increasing access to care to LA County's most vulnerable populations. And then we do public awareness and stigma reduction work, and storytelling is a really big part of that, and I'll be talking about that a little bit later. But with that, I'd like to introduce Beth Murphy of Principal Pictures. Oops. Sorry, Beth, I muted.
Oh, sorry. Hi, everybody. I was just responding to Catherine, who said I'd show up for anything with homemade empanadas, and I totally agree with that. That was a great intro, Kelly. Thank you so much, and thank you everybody for being here today. I'm Beth Murphy. I'm the founder of Principal Pictures. We are a media and impact company, and while we do a lot of different projects, I want to share one in particular with you today. I'm the director and producer of Our Turn to Talk. And Our Turn to Talk is a documentary film. It's a podcast series. It's also a national impact campaign and a research project that really centers the stories of young people who say, you know, when it comes to mental health and emotional well-being, enough is enough with the stigma and the shame. It's time to just put an end to that. And so they're speaking up very openly about their mental health struggles and their triumphs. So, you know, I want to share with you that, you know, as a mom of a 15-year-old daughter whose struggles really started pretty much immediately at the beginning of the pandemic, and we're not quite out of the woods yet, it was really important to me to hear directly from young people about their experiences and to remind parents at the time, you know, remind myself that we as the gatekeepers to care really need to listen. You know, this is their turn to talk, and it's a good time for us to be able to listen. You know, the statistics, you've probably, you know, seen them. In 2021, 20% of high school students said that they had considered suicide. It is deeply troubling, deeply alarming. And, we believe, as a filmmaker, as a journalist, as a storyteller, I really believe that storytelling is one of the most powerful ways that we can build empathy, we can inspire action, and we can really create change. So, we all, I think, are familiar with post-traumatic stress syndrome, PTSD, but there's also something called post-traumatic growth. And because the experience of trauma is one that, really unites all of us, this is a universal thing that we experience. It was our goal with the film and with the podcast series, Our Turn to Talk, to highlight the ways that young people have dealt with adversity, and how they've been transformed by their experiences and kind of come out the other side in a positive way. Even, not to say that it's over, but to say that, to really put an emphasis on positive and healing coping mechanisms and resilience. So resilience and hope really are the defining qualities of the stories of these lived experiences. And I really believe we can all learn from the wisdom of these kids. And there's even a I guess maybe like a bigger philosophical underpinning of this work and of this project, which is that storytelling can save lives. And it's a big concept, and one that, when I was first thinking about it and hearing this, really wanted to kind of dive into the research and ultimately create some of our own research around storytelling to see if this could really be backed up. And we've since done that, and I'll share a little bit of that with you a little bit later in the presentation. As you see here, we're trying to, meet audiences where they are, many different types of media across many different platforms, building partnerships for screenings and action, doing research around the power of media to reduce stigma and to increase help-seeking behaviors. And again, this is one case study with one of our projects. And if we'll move ahead here to Our Turn to Talk. And we again are across lots of different platforms. You can find the podcast pretty much everywhere that you get podcasts. I tend to listen on Spotify to my podcasts, but we partnered with public television for the release of the film and some other online series or with teens and mental health. And I want to start by sharing the trailer of the film with you, which is next.
Mental health is a problem. No one talks about it because it's scary. I mean, it's not something that you can see, it's not visible.
One black boy dying really shakes the whole city. That's somebody's son.
I always had pressure on me to be something that I wasn't.
We need to talk.
This podcast is about teens saying enough is enough. I had an eating disorder for 5 years, and that's because I kept silent about it.
I didn't need this research investigation to conclude that, hey, Instagram is bad for me. But it's like this silent addiction that creeps up on you.
Children are using Instagram to self-soothe, but then are exposed to more and more content that makes them hate themselves.
Sharing my story helped me recover and helped me accept myself.
You can literally start improving the lives of humanity by speaking and being honest about what you've been through.
It's the hardships that make you brave. It's the hardships that build you up and prepare you for whatever is next.
You shouldn't be ashamed to talk about what's going on in your head because it doesn't make you any less tough. It just makes you human.
Most of what we need is just someone to listen and someone who will take the time to try to understand and to try to help us get help.
This is Our Turn to Talk.
And if we can now, I'm actually going to just skip ahead to the second one. I'll share one more story with you. You met a bit of Anastasia there. Why don't we'll skip ahead. I'll go to Morgan's story. Great.
You want me to go first? When I was growing up, anything that my brother and sister did, I had to be better at it. One day my brother was like, hey, I really want to try hockey. And I found my love for the game. It's super fast. You have to keep up, clear your mind. It's guided me through the years, and if I'm having a bad day, I could always just go on the ice. Especially last year with my depression and anxiety. I was having these panic attacks and crying a lot. My hands would shake. I couldn't breathe. I had no motivation to be at the rink anymore. My parents always taught me that if I needed help, it was okay to ask. We thought, this might be a great time to tell my coach kind of what's going on. The next day, my dad said, you were being removed from the team. You can't be at any tournaments, you can't be around the team, you can't go to any practices because you were considered a danger. My hockey coach sent an email to the rest of the team parents that did not include my parents. One of the lines in it was, we don't want any other child to carry the burden of Morgan. I was at a super low point, and hearing this made me go back even farther. So my goal then was just to keep myself alive.
High school hockey player involved in an unusual lawsuit. She is suing the Team Illinois Hockey Club and the Amateur Hockey Association of Illinois for discrimination.
Their attorney says this incident is a clear violation of the Illinois Human Rights Act.
It wasn't even about me anymore. We wanted them to put mental health programs in place to help the coaches and the athletes. They still haven't done it. So we are deciding to sue because we don't want this ever to happen to anyone again.
Okay, but we could just hang out in my room until then.
Okay, cool. Your butt is big and so is your heart.
Yeah, that's what my sister wrote.
What's up, Morgie?
Hi. Rob, I want you to meet my new friend.
Hi, I'm Anastasia. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I just got off the ice. Got done some hockey. Had some golf today.
Yeah, that's so cool. I mean, you're a big hockey star. You could have just gone on, lived your life, but instead you invest a lot of time helping Morgan. So why do you do that?
Well, Morgan's story hit really close to home for me, how she was treated. And that was something that I went through as well. In the pro sports, a lot of guys power through it and just try to put it aside. And it's a tricky line because you don't want to be passed up.
Right. I feel like a lot of young athletes especially experience these conflicting mindsets. So why do you think it's important to talk about your emotions and not suppress them?
I lost a big amount of time by just powering through and not getting to know myself. And now I'm in my 30s and trying to go backwards and figure it out piece by piece, so to speak. So I think it's valuable to educate the youth now and understand of what means powering through and what means addressing. I can speak from depression. It doesn't have to be hidden.
Right.
Whether it might be therapy, whether it might be medication, it's something that you can be going through and also be an athlete.
We've thankfully found the medicine that she thrives with the best. And we don't look at this as a negative. We liken it more to someone who's diabetic and needs that insulin to survive.
The biggest thing that my psychiatrist told me was it's not going to work right away. So don't be mad if in a week you're not feeling better. That was really hard for me to wrap my head around.
This has been a great way for her to learn other tools that she wouldn't have otherwise been able to use had she still been in such a low, unmedicated place. And we're still supplementing that with her therapist and with yoga and with her daily exercise.
This is where I work out 3 times a week. It's called Base. This is our leaderboard, so it's there's different exercises on here.
Have you ever been on a leaderboard?
Yeah, so I'm right here.
Oh yeah.
Bench, hang clean.
Oh,
up here, and then bench up here.
That's awesome.
All right, are you ready to go work out?
Yes,
Let's
I am.
do it.
All right.
Yeah, you got it. You got it.
How many more?
There you go. Do you feel it?
I do. Yeah.
How's working out helped you like recover from your mental?
So much. Now, honestly, when I think about the gym, I get a little bit emotional because I feel like the gym was a great place where I could track my progress, and that just made me feel strong and good in my body, which is such a difference from how I used to feel about it. So,
Yeah, that's how I am too. And I feel like when I'm really bad mentally, I can come in here and work out and, you know, like take a step back and say like, hey, Morgan, like, what do you need? You know, if I had hurt my back and I had to tell my coach that I had to sit out of practice, he'd say, you know, do whatever you need to do to get back on the ice. For my mental health, it was either you're 100% in or you're 100% out. And you shouldn't be ashamed to talk about what's going on in your head because it doesn't make you any less tough. It just makes you human.
And we started making the documentary right before the pandemic started. And when, you know, the pandemic hit, we weren't able to conduct the filming in the same way that we had originally envisioned. And so as we were trying to kind of, you know, figure out, you know, what we were going to do and exactly, you know, how we were going to do it, we decided to put out a call for storytellers across the country to participate in a video diary series. And we partnered with the PBS station in Washington, D.C., WIDA, and they were just about to launch a platform called Well-Beings, focused on mental health and really starting with a priority on young people, because it was in late 2021 that the U.S. Surgeon General said that, you know, that kids were in crisis. And so that happened. I mean, that happened even before the pandemic started. And then the pandemic, of course, exacerbated everything for mental health issues for young people. And so at that time, so in the, you know, well, the world shut down in March, by May, we had started to release this video diary series with teenagers across the US, really to help, you know, capture what was going on, and also to help other kids who, you know, weren't able to speak out, to help them not feel so alone and not feel so isolated. So I just want to share, it was called the Brave Teens video diary series. It's our next slide, and we'll just play a short trailer from that project.
Hi guys. Hello.
Hey, I'm Joe.
It's Jada.
I'm Carol, and this is my mental health story.
And I'm really, really excited to be a part of This Is My Braves video diary project.
Today sucks. Let's talk about that.
Mentally, I just been so distraught. Be proud of the tiny little steps they were able to make, especially as a teenager and handling mental illness, and especially in such a unique time as the one that we're in right now.
And just to, I just want to answer Katie here, who asked about clarifying something about Morgan's story. She had a mental illness, or if it was caused by her being removed from the team. So thank you for asking this question, because it reminds me of something that I wanted to share with you, which is Morgan's story was so important for us to share, because it was stigma in action. You know, we talk about stigma, we talk about shame, but like, what is it? How do you like see it, touch it, feel it, taste it? You know, what is it? And so to see this like really direct thing happen where this player, Morgan, you know, she felt like, you know, this family, it was a family environment for her, you know, for her hockey team, felt very close to her coach, went to her coach and said, hey, I'm really struggling. I'm having suicidal thoughts. I'm really depressed. I'm having a lot of anxiety. I don't know what to do. Rather than, you know, be welcomed and, you know, given a supportive environment and finding, you know, a lot of, you know, care and comfort there, the reaction was completely different. And the coach, reached out to other parents behind her parents' back, behind her back, and told the other parents that they probably shouldn't let their daughters interact with Morgan anymore, and subsequently then kicked Morgan off the team as a direct result of her sharing her mental health struggles. So it was, so the sharing of her mental health struggles, being public about it with her coach, is what caused her to be kicked off the team. So, so thank you for asking that, Katie. So, you see here, so this was the very beginning. These Brave Teen Diaries came first, and then, we had the documentary. So that was the beginning. I want to share with you what the newest and the latest is, and this is super new. It's truly hot off the presses news. We've been collaborating with the STAR Lab at the University of South Florida. It's the Stigma Action Research Lab. Specifically, we've been studying the podcast, and I want to share with you the next slide, which shows the initial findings from this research, which came in less than a week ago. We just go to the next slide. So in this study, so young people between the ages of 18 and 22 are listening to the podcast and then being studied as part of this research that we're doing. What the research has shown so far is that there are changes in attitude toward mental health treatment. So positive attitudes are going up and negative attitudes are going down. When the research has looked at internalized stigma, it's finding that listening to the podcast created improvements in all 5 subscales: stereotype endorsement, discrimination experience, social withdrawal, stigma resistance, and alienation. And, the upshot of all of this is that listening to the Our Turn to Talk podcast is proving to be an effective strategy for improving attitudes about mental health treatment, improving opinions of people who are living with mental health conditions, and improving internalized stigma. So, this research is really important to us. And, we think as a fight, against stigma, as a barrier to teen mental health, teens and young adults are very unlikely to reach out for mental health care due to stigma. And then the subsequent feelings of shame, which lead to, withdrawal. One of the things that really has stayed with me, that I was, really surprised and still shocked to learn during the research for this project, is that the time period between the time someone, self-identifies as needing help, the average time between identifying as needing help and actually getting help is anywhere from 8 to 10 years. Which I think is really shocking. So, so we're really excited about these initial research findings and are continuing to do research with our media. And what's very clear is that I think we can all play a big role in ending stigma. Which leads me to our next slide. We have as I said at the beginning, this project it's a film, it's a podcast, it's research, it's also a national impact campaign. And with the National Impact Campaign, we have a lot of different partners who are helping us to organize from a grassroots level, really pretty massive screening series across the country, getting into high schools, middle schools, on college campuses. These are some of our partners. For example, at Harvard, we're working with the School of Education and the School of Social Work. We have a screening coming up in May, and we're looking at engaging graduate students in some in recruiting them to work with us on a Discord channel that we've built that is providing a safe place for young people to come together. We've been working with the American School Counselors Association since the summer, doing screenings both with their counselors, and also the counselors then bringing the film into the school setting and into the community setting. And we're working now on some training with Our Turn to Talk with counselors. So a lot happening in that space, and we're doing, again, everything from engaging more young people to share their stories to creating some new mental health training programs. And, you know, this national impact campaign is a place where there's kind of room for everybody. And, you know, I'll just leave you with this. We have some, I'll share with you another couple of slides here. You can kind of take a look at your leisure. Just some of the things that people who are watching the film, you know, some things that they're saying and feeling. And this is a place where, you know, if you'd like to consider joining us to further the impact, this is a great way to do it by bringing the film into your community and really helping to start these important conversations and ultimately let kids know it is their turn to talk and we are listening. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Beth. I find the data that you've collected to be very interesting, and I would possibly think that it can apply to, you know, storytelling at any age, right? And the benefits of it. So
Absolutely.
what I'd like to share with you all is a project that Maternal Mental Health Now engaged in several years ago in 2019 around storytelling. Like I said, one of our main program areas is stigma reduction. Stigma remains one of the biggest barriers to a pregnant and postpartum person accessing care, because you just had a baby. It's supposed to be the most wonderful and happiest time of your life. And if it's not, many people are really ashamed or embarrassed to seek help. So what we did is we partnered with Melissa Banks, who's an advocate, a person with lived experience with postpartum psychosis. She has a very interesting and diverse career, having worked as a community organizer, a fundraiser, as a storyteller and actress, etc. But the way we met her is because we, following her experience with postpartum psychosis, she wrote and produced a one-woman play about her experience. And then she took that on tour around the West Coast, including Los Angeles. So that's how we met Melissa. And we were so struck by her ability to, you know, share her story and share it so authentically and vulnerably. We started a relationship, and we thought, hey, do you think you could do that with, you know, elicit stories from other people? And she said, sure. So we received funding from Cal Mesa, which offered mini grants. They were $5,000 each. We secured 3 of them. And with that funding, we organized 3 storytelling workshops. We had a total of 22 participants. They were aged between 18 and 50. And the only criteria to participate is that they had an experience with perinatal mood and anxiety disorders, loss, birth trauma, or other hardship during the perinatal period. We partnered with different community organizations that have like physical centers, like on the ground, which is where we held the workshops. And then Melissa went off and created her curriculum for the day. It was a full day workshop. We provided childcare to eliminate that barrier for people to participate. We provided lunch, we provided snacks, and all that to increase utilization or increase participation. So anyway, the curriculum that Melissa developed, a very large part of it is like managing expectations and setting the scene before the actual workshop. So Melissa would reach out to each of the participants individually by phone and had a conversation with them just to understand, you know, where they're coming from, when their experience is or was. Are they still in it? If they're still in a place of crisis, it's probably not a good idea for them to participate in this workshop. This workshop is for people who have had an experience, have had a chance to heal from it and process it, and are ready for the next part of healing, right? So that's a large part of that, is establishing safety. She went over different logistical considerations, like I said, childcare. Was there a place where someone could nurse or could pump if their baby was at home? Well, you know, any dietary restrictions for lunch and so on. And also one of the rooms that was like, you know, had all glass walls, and we learned one of the things we learned is like that may not have been the best setting because people wanted to be more private. She also collected a bunch of local resources just in case this experience brought up, you know, feelings and emotions that were unexpected. She wanted the participants to leave with local resources that they could call upon for help. And then as everyone gathered on the day, she spent a significant amount of time grounding them in the experience, making sure that they were present, mindful, and so on and so forth. In terms of what actually happens on the day, she started out with icebreakers. She is a comedian as well, so there's definitely a place for humor in the storytelling workshop. She spent a lot of time setting the tone, and a lot of that tone is about being authentic and being like, it's okay to bring, put on the table for discussion like your ugliest and most vulnerable and most shameful moment, as long as all of us are doing that, and that this is a safe place and that we won't leave the room, and she created some scripts for how to do that, how to set the tone. And then she also, one of the key rules was you are able to participate as to the extent that you want to participate. If you want to go there, feel free. If you don't feel comfortable, if you want to pass on an exercise, that's okay too. She had a variety of exercises that including, free writing. There was an exercise that incorporated body movement. It was called stepping into the circle. So everyone had to stand up and step into the circle and do or say something. She incorporated some cultural elements through myths and legends exercise. She definitely incorporated humor and comedy and pulling from her own experience in her psychotic state. There was one, she set the scene of something that she did that just elicited laughter across the board, led by her, of course. There was another exercise she did called Slumber Party, where everyone lies on the ground with their head, we used to do this in 8th grade when we had summer parties. Everyone lies on the ground with their heads in someone else's stomach. And when someone starts laughing, the laughter just permeates the entire room. Everyone starts laughing. And improv. And then for a closing, she asked everybody to, share one thing that you're taking away from the experience and that you're grateful for. And then she conducted an evaluation that asked people, how satisfied were they with the safe space, the activities that were presented, the level of engagement, the use of time, and facilitation. The outcomes of those evaluations, 100% of participants rated the workshop as excellent. They reported that they left with a deeper awareness of maternal mental health resources in the community. They left with a greater sense of well-being, and they left with an increased comfort level sharing their story with others. Something else that Melissa did that was really nice was she created a closed Facebook group for all the people in the room to continue to communicate with each other. Because again, things come up. You might have left the room and a couple days later, had a flashback or something. So this was a safe place for people to share those experiences and to keep in touch. One thing Melissa really stresses the importance of is safety. Like I said before, this workshop is not meant for someone who's in a crisis situation or is still experiencing depression or anxiety in a profound way. There needs to have been some healing done prior to participating in this workshop. She also stresses that the facilitator should have basic level of knowledge about perinatal mood and anxiety disorders. For example, what's the difference between postpartum OCD and postpartum psychosis, and how do you tell the difference? They don't need to be a clinician at all, but they need to have a basic understanding so that when, let's say, a participant enters the room and shares some symptoms or some things they did while in that, in that time period, they're able to, the facilitator is able to provide some level of psychoeducation and also where to go for more information. She brought a list of local resources in case people wanted them. And then setting the tone is really important, that this is an opportunity for healing. It's a safe place, it's a confidential place. People aren't going, your peers, fellow participants aren't going to take your story and then repeat it later. She made some agreements with the group beforehand. She conducted a readiness assessment with each participant prior to the workshop. That was that one-on-one check-in, that phone call that happened beforehand. Healing must have been accomplished. And also if it's still like buried, then the participant won't be able to fully engage. That's something else that she learned as a result of these experiences. Confidentiality is really important so people feel comfortable sharing. And there's some discussion around stigma, like why we're doing this, right? And ultimately why we're doing this and why Maternal Mental Health Now sponsored these workshops is, our hope is that by people sharing their stories, their most vulnerable, shameful, embarrassing, funny moments in the perinatal period, that will encourage someone else to think about their experience, potentially share their story, and it has like a knock-on effect. And my goal and my vision is that we reach a tipping point where people are sharing all of the pieces of their perinatal journeys, and there's no longer stigma associated with that. So these workshops took place about four years ago now. And as a result of these workshops, we now have a group of 20. We actually have more volunteers, people with lived experience with perinatal depression, anxiety, trauma, loss, or other hardship that are willing to tell their stories. Something I haven't said yet is that they did not leave the workshop with a final, curated, polished story at all. They left the workshop with sort of like the roots or the seeds of that story and what they wanted to accomplish, and they were encouraged, if they chose to continue, that writing and the documenting of that story. And Melissa made herself available to a subsection of participants to provide feedback and get that story to a place where it was polished. But in any case, as a result of these workshops, Maternal Mental Health now has this cohort of storytellers that are willing to tell their stories in a variety of different settings, and these are the ways that we use those stories. We do a lot of training of healthcare providers, social service providers, community providers, anyone in a position to recognize and respond to postpartum depression and anxiety. So in those trainings, every single one of them, we share a story. So this is a screenshot of one of our online trainings about suicide during the perinatal period. And you see Raul Martinez's face on the screen. He lost his wife, Kelly Abraham Martinez, to suicide. And this is him sharing his story. We have a story library on our website and I would encourage you after this workshop to go and check it out. We have a variety of different stories on that page. They're in both video and written formats. Vanessa's story details grief and loss as a result of repeated miscarriage. And TJ Hill's story is his perspective, his experience as a gay man. And he and his partner adopted a daughter. He was the stay-at-home dad, and he experienced some intrusive thoughts and he was very isolated. And this is him sharing his story. So our stories, we're trying to highlight different experiences on there. And then this is Amber's story. And I like to highlight her story because she, a couple of years ago, we were co-sponsoring some bills in Sacramento with 2020 Mom. And she shared her story with the legislators at a health committee hearing. And she had to drill it down to 2 minutes, but she did, and she did it very well. And her story is one of having severe anxiety and panic attacks during pregnancy and going to the emergency room and not getting what she needed at all. She was halfway through her pregnancy, so the second half was just full of sleepless nights and panic attacks and anxiety. It was a horrible time period for her. And she pursued all the different options she could for treatment and did not find the resources that she needed. And the bill that we were co-sponsoring was regarding, was a perinatal psychiatric consultation line. So had that been in existence, her provider could have called this line, spoken to a reproductive psychiatrist who could have advised on medication that would have helped her. But she suffered for months unnecessarily because that program it still doesn't really exist in California in a big way. And I thought it was very powerful. So with that concludes my portion of the presentation, and I'd like to open it up for questions. For Beth or myself. Okay, we have a question. Thank you, Ivana, for sharing the link. How do you define storytelling from therapy groups for the participants? Catherine, can you unmute yourself and say more? I don't know if I fully understand the question.
Oh, I didn't know I could unmute myself, so because in the big session you can't, so I apologize.
Go ahead.
How do the participant, am I there?
Yeah, we can hear you.
How do the participants know, like they're going to go and tell a story? How does it, maybe the better question is, how does it differ from group therapy?
That's a good question. Well, I think group therapy and support groups, there's different ways to deliver them, right? Like there may be a start date, an end date, it might be drop-in, there might be a specific curriculum that is followed. This is definitely presented to participants in the advertising and in the individual check-in that Melissa facilitated. It was clear that it was not a support group. It's a one-time, it's a one-off event. And it's for somebody who is looking to take their experience and do something more with it. It did tend to attract creatives, if you will, and people who are mental health practitioners. There's an overwhelming number of people who are mental health practitioners who have this experience and sort of understand the value of creativity in the healing process. So it is important to make that clear to participants that it's not a therapy group, but if they're looking for that, here's a list of resources that are available. And also, I will say that all participants reported that the act of writing or acting out or sharing their story was healing. So it did have a healing effect, but that wasn't, you know, it is distinct from therapy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kelly. Katie's got her hand raised. I'll ask Katie to unmute and you can ask your question.
Hi, I don't really have a question, but more of like a statement. Beth, I had the opportunity to watch your documentary, Our Turn to Talk, through Youth Move PA this past, was it just past this week? I think it was just Monday.
Yeah, it was Monday. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And it was just so powerful. And I just want to like thank you for your work, because I just think it really is amazing what telling our stories can do. And I just hope that we can continue to do that. And especially in the maternal mental health world, I would love to see something as powerful as that, because I just think it's so needed. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad you were able to see it with you. We've loved collaborating with Youth Move PA and hope to do more together. Thank you.
So Beth, is Our Turn to Talk available for different communities to bring the film to our community and show it?
It is. Yeah, we have, if you go on the website, which I just put a link to it, it's ourturntotalk.com. And basically, if you just write to us, there's a form. And if you just send that in, you'll automatically get a link that will take you to, it's kind of like one-stop shopping for everything you need. We're happy to support as much as people do need, but it is possible to, kind of get in there, download the film, have the trailer, have access to poster templates, checklist for you, kind of like, what to do when and what order. We worked with the Jed Foundation to create a playbook to go along with the film, kind of a screening and action guide. So that's there to help, facilitate conversations. So there are a lot of resources that people have access to. And again, lots of people are doing it already, bringing it to libraries, bringing it into schools, having it just in the home setting, and doing screenings there. So, it just depends what you think works for your audience and who you want to bring it to. But we also, there are times when, like with the Youth Move, PA event on Monday, You know, we had someone from the film participate remotely. It was mostly a virtual screening. And so there was a virtual, you know, Q&A that happened. So that can happen with members of the film team, that can happen with young people who are featured in the film, or just other young people who aren't featured, you know, in the film, but who are part of our network. So again, just, you know, based on what you want to achieve and the kind of conversation that you want to have, we can help you reach your goals with it.
So great. I'm just struck by, and I do think, you know, tides are turning and young people are talking about their mental health. But if we're able to encourage young people to talk about mental health as young people, when they start to have children, they'll be more open and honest about their mental health during the perinatal period.
Yeah, it's a great point. Yeah, it's a game changer, starting it younger and getting people, you know, having people be comfortable. I think the young people talking about it is making older people, like, making us more comfortable with it ourselves. They're kind of showing us like what's possible, and you know, the world the way it could be, which is great. There's a long way to go, but it's great to see it starting.
Catherine, go ahead. You can unmute yourself.
Me again. This is a question really for anyone participating as well as the panel, but does anyone have ideas of how to incorporate storytelling into just a general OBGYN practice?
I have one idea. Some practices will have you know, TVs in the waiting room and showing stories that way. Anyone else have any ideas?
I'll say, Kelly, that we pre-COVID, and I think now post-COVID might be able to do it again, but have hosted some screenings here locally. And part of the programming has been somebody from a local practice sharing, and often the OBGYNs are in the audience. So I don't know if you're looking, you know, depending on what audience you're looking for, if you're trying to reach the doctors versus trying to reach the other patients, but anything that brings local community together where someone can share a story amongst their peers is really powerful too.
I want to point out that, like, OBs will also have their own stories from their perspective, right? So I feel like stories are everywhere, and the act of identifying them, capturing them, and distributing them, I think, is a key for achieving change. And something that we've realized with our storytellers is that their stories have changed over the years, right? We have one storyteller, her name's Brittany. She's a Black woman, and when she shared, it was one of those few that self-selected and said, I want to, like, make this, you know, stronger and curate it. Her story was really about, it wasn't a doom and gloom story at all. Like, her story was one of success, right? She's a Black woman. She was educated about the disparities that Black women experience in birth, and she wanted to get the right care team around her so she could have a joyful birthing experience. And she had some challenges in doing that, but she overcame them and she pursued, and she had that experience that she wanted. And that was her story, and it's on our video library on our website if you want to check it out. Well, now we're 4 years later and she has a second child, and her story has shifted because she has a new, you know, experience. And so it's just, they're always evolving. There's another woman named Lauren Abu Lafia, and her story centered on the NICU stay of her firstborn child. She's since had another baby as well. And so her first story was, at the time, was very, like, I mean, it's heart-wrenching, right? About early delivery, NICU stay. She wasn't sure if her child was going to make it. She wasn't sure if she was going to make it. Now she had a second baby, and it was a much more positive experience. So now, again, her story has also evolved. Thanks, Catherine. Are there any other questions or comments? Is anybody incorporating storytelling in their work, in their, where they live? If not, then I think we can end the session. Is that okay, Crystal?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, Katie says she's working on her dissertation on storytelling. That's very exciting.
Very cool.
That's fabulous. Well, I would just want to encourage everyone to access each other and the materials from today in the Whova app to stay connected. Thank you all for the work that you're doing. I'll let you read some of these comments real quick, Kelly. Before we close out.
Katie says that she's still trying to master her story and how it has evolved. That's great. Yeah, it's a process, right? And Katie says, is this what your dissertation is on? The stories of NICU parent leaders' experiences of engaging in healthcare advocacy?
Yeah, Katie, I would love to hear more about what you're working on.
I just started my dissertation. I've been involved with 2020 Mom since 2014, and then really focusing on the neonatal world through the NICU parent leader idea. So how do parents who have experienced a NICU stay, who experienced time in the NICU, micro preemie, even late term preemie, or even full term, because NICU is prematurity and sometimes full term with the illness, and exploring how their collective story leads to actionable outcomes. So building your own organization to improve the way healthcare is delivered. So my PhD is in leadership studies. So how do we create, so what is that motivation, that impetus to get involved in healthcare and improve the way healthcare is delivered?
That's great. I think, like, whether we're talking about OBGYNs or, medical staff or legislators, they're all people, right? And they all have personal experience, and change happens when, from the heart, if you share, and storytelling is a key strategy for achieving that change. So that's where it sort of starts. And then also, if we're talking about one of the earlier sessions today was talking about making sure people's voices are at the table when decisions are being made, and those voices represent stories.
I'm looking at portraiture research, which I find kind of interesting. It's selecting 2 or 3 people, maybe 4 with a little bit of a stretch, and really getting deeply into their stories, and extracting, shared content.
Well, thanks for the work that you're doing, and to everybody on the.
I just started my dissertation. So get back to me in a year.
We'll be thinking of you, Katie, and we're cheering for you over here. I know it's got to be a lot of work. It'll be.
Thanks, Crystal.
Well, fabulous, everyone. You've got about a 20-minute break, since we'll be ending a few minutes early here before being invited to come back around for topic networking. So we will look forward to seeing you at another one of those sessions, or at the top of the day tomorrow. Thank you very much. Thanks, Kelly, and thank you, Beth, for your expertise.
Thank you so much.
It's great to see you both. Bye, everyone.
Bye, thank you.